Welcome to day 23 of Shadowhunters month, and this is another top 10 video, and in this top 10 I'm going to be counting down my top 10 favourite moments from the show, Shadowhunters, the Mortal Instruments. There was so many different moments that I thought of and wrote down and tried to narrow down. I found this really difficult. A lot of them were like really close calls, and I found it very difficult to order them, even when I had narrowed it down to my top 10. Because sometimes it's just like that much. It's a difference between where some of these moments placed on my list. And there's just so many amazing moments throughout the whole show that I just found it really difficult to kind of work it out. But I'm happy with my final list, and you know, maybe by the end of 3B next year, almost certainly by the end of 3B next year, this list would be completely different, because I'm guessing there's a lot of goodness to come in 3B and the 2-hour finale, especially as a Sizzy fan, I imagine. My whole top 10 will just be replaced with Sizzy stuff. But yeah, for now, this is the list I'm going with, and I feel like this is the perfect way to celebrate how good of a show Shadowhunters has become. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into this top 10. So at number 10, it's Valentines Death in the Season 2 finale, episode 20 of Season 2, Beside Still Water. This had been a moment, a long time coming, something we were all rooting to happen, and something I was going into the finale pretty sure was going to happen. So it wasn't a surprise that this was the end of Valentine, but after so much villainy and scheming throughout the first 2 seasons of the show, it was great to finally see Valentine get his comeuppance and be defeated, and by Clary, no less. I really liked how they handled Valentine's demise in the show. I wasn't actually that threatened by Valentine in Season 1. I didn't actually think he was like the best villain or anything, but I didn't in the books either. But I feel like he improved a lot during Season 2 in terms of like villainy and stuff, and Alan Van Sprang's always been fun to watch as the character. And you know, he'd put Clary and Jocelyn and Jace and everyone through so much. So to finally see it all go wrong for him, and to see it fail, and to see him finally get killed after he just, you know, stabbed Jace, it was a really great payoff to that kind of villainous arc that he'd had throughout the show. And I feel like he didn't overstay his welcome. I feel like they timed it just right, getting rid of him at the end of Season 2. You know, they could have easily dragged that out for longer, but I'm glad they didn't. I think the timing was right. They'd done all he could really do as a character and a villain in that role. Obviously it wasn't the last we saw of him, because he came back in episode 9 of Season 3. A very nice surprise. But to see him get killed by his own daughter, and to see kind of this huge payoff for not only, you know, the fact that Valentine was like the main villain of the show, and to finally see him defeated was great. Seeing Clary's whole journey throughout the first 2 seasons of the show, and to allow her to be in this place where she could kill her own father. Great kind of character moments as well, and everyone loves it when the villain gets their comeuppance, don't they? It's just a real punch-layer moment, and a good thing to be celebrated. So I really loved seeing Valentine finally get defeated. At number 9, it's the Maya and Jordan flashbacks from Season 3, Episode 7, Salt in the Wound. This might be an odd choice, you might be thinking, but I always loved the Maya and Jordan relationship in the books. I found it fascinating, and I was always a kind of a fan of them as a couple. I know I probably shouldn't really like it, but I was more of a fan of it, you know, before it kind of all went wrong, and Jordan became a werewolf and all that. Before it got messed up, basically, and that's kind of what we saw throughout most of the flashbacks in this episode, and I thought you know, the actors had this great chemistry. The characters worked so well together. It was just really, really adorable seeing these two like young lovers fall in love and be really happy. Even though we all knew it was all going to go horribly wrong eventually. But getting those flashbacks kind of filled me with book nostalgia and made the book nerd in me really happy. And yeah, I just feel like the actors really pulled it off. Some really adorable little sequences, some great moments of character building. Because, you know, we could have just been, well, we kind of knew what went down with Maya and Jordan. We didn't actually necessarily need to see it, but the fact that we did and they gave us these flashbacks, for me, was really, really cool and really, really satisfying. And yeah, I just found them absolutely adorable in the flashbacks, and it was just really nice to get that insight. At number 8, it's the end of Lilith from Season 3, Episode 10, the 3A finale. Urkomai? I've just realised I never actually said it out loud before, so I don't know how to pronounce it, but that one. And, you know, I say end of Lilith quite loosely because I feel like we might see her again. And it's not that she's necessarily dead, she's just been banished from, you know, Earth back to the realm she came from. So, yeah, but that whole sequence that kind of ended Season 3A was so satisfying and so well done. You know, Rural's music in the background really made it like this epic climactic sequence, and the whole feel of it was just incredible. You know, we had Simon like destroying the thing containing Jonathan. Lilith just smacked him, and the Mark of Cain activated. She got flamed back, and then we just see her kind of get all flaky and cracked and stuff, and she just lets out that huge scream as she explodes and gets banished. And obviously that explosion kind of causes Simon to fly out the window, and Jonathan like grabs Chloe's arm as she's trying to get away and stuff like that. So there's this huge explosion, this amazing kind of event that we'd been building up to through the whole of the first half of Season 3. And it just felt epic, and it was like a worthy exit, if it really is an exit, for Lilith in the show. Because I really, really loved Lilith in the show. I thought it did such a great job. The actress was just phenomenal, Anna Hopkins. I adore her. And, you know, she literally went out in a blaze of glory, and I just loved that whole sequence so much. It felt really epic and grand, and something they may not have been able to pull off quite as effectively in Season 1, but by Season 3 they'd found their feet, and they gave us a really, really spectacular ending for the 3A finale. At number 7, it's Jace bringing Alec back in Season 2, Episode 3, Parabatai Lost. It took me so long to realise that the title of that episode was a reference to Paradise Lost, so obviously it makes sense, but I did wonder, like, why is it called that so long? But it's a pun, I should have guessed. Anyway, this was a great moment. Parabatai Lost remains to be one of my favourite episodes. And, you know, we spent most of the episode with Alec just having a nap. He was trying to find Jace, and things were going wrong. He was kind of dying, I suppose. And, you know, they get Jace back, but all's not well with Alec. He's still, you know, really badly hurt. And we have this really emotional scene. Obviously we'd seen kind of like flashbacks as well throughout this with like a younger Jace and Alec, so that really kind of added to the emotional weight, and it showed us just how long these two characters have been together and bonded over time, and just how close and brother-like they were. And then, you know, Dominic Sherwood was just absolutely fantastic in this scene where he was like giving this speech with like the Shadowhunter vows and everything, as he was desperately trying to save his Parabatai. And then we get that moment where Alec wakes up and opens his eyes and hugs Jace. It's really emotional. You feel the weight of, you know, what is on everyone's minds. You feel the weight of the situation, and you kind of understand truly how powerful the Parabatai bond is, but also just Jace and Alec's bond, even without the Parabatai stuff, because obviously I feel like they'd be really close even if they weren't Parabatai, because they're basically brothers. So I loved them showcasing that in this scene, and, you know, Clary and Isabel and Magnus's kind of relief when Alec turns out to be okay. And it's just a really emotionally driven scene, and I'm always a sucker for those, and the performances were brilliant, and there was lots of emotion in there, and overall I just really, really loved the whole sequence. It was really emotionally powerful. At number 6, it's Jocelyn's funeral from Season 2, Episode 5, Dust and Shadows. I've gone on record in my reactions many a time saying I do completely disagree with the show's decision to kill Jocelyn. I do think it's probably their biggest mistake, or at least one of them, in terms of them telling this story. It just I feel like it closed a lot more doors than it opened, but it did lead to this really emotional, really amazing sequence that still gets me in the feels every time I watch it. So obviously in the episode before this one, Jocelyn had been killed by Alec possessed as a demon, by a demon, possessed as a demon. And we see kind of throughout the whole episode Clary going on this journey of trying to bring Jocelyn back to life, and ultimately accepting that that can't happen, it's not possible. And then we end this episode with Jocelyn's funeral. They give her like a proper Shadowhunter funeral and a farewell. You know, the Silent Brothers are there, it's all official, and they have to kind of say the name of like these Shadowhunters who had fallen during the events of the previous episode, because obviously it wasn't just Jocelyn there that was having the funeral for her. Everyone was dressed in white, it was all amazing. Alec was, you know, crying because he felt so guilty, and that's emotional enough, seeing Alec cry. But, you know, the Silent Brothers made everyone like say the names of the people that had been lost, and when it came to Clary's turn to say, you know, Jocelyn Fairchild, Jace being there to support her through it, you know, she tried, and then she just said mum, and she just breaks down. You know, Kat's acting in that scene's fantastic, and I loved that Jace was there for Clary in that moment and ultimately said Jocelyn Fairchild himself for the ceremony to continue. Then we had this like gorgeous imagery of like these particles of light kind of ascending from the bodies, and kind of like an ascension to heaven, almost kind of ritual. It was a really beautiful moment, really sad, really, really emotional. I think the performances really did sell it, but the whole thing just looked beautiful, and the sentiment behind it I found really, really moving. And while I clearly don't agree with the choice to kill off Jocelyn, getting this funeral sequence from that did help justify it in an emotional standpoint and a storytelling standpoint for Clary's journey. But yeah, I thought the whole sequence was really emotional and really beautiful, and that's why it sticks in my mind so vividly. So at number 5, it's from the 2A finale, episode 10, By the Light of Dawn, and it is Malik saying I love you for the first time. I wasn't actually expecting this moment when I watched the episode, but we had this really amazing scene with Alec and Magnus. You know, Alec was scared that Magnus had been killed after the whole events with like the soul sword and everything, but then he finds him, he's there, he's okay, and you know, Alec was saying, thinking Magnus was dead, was the most scared he's been, almost the most scared he's ever been in his entire life. And that's when he tells Magnus that he loves him for the first time, and Magnus says it back. I really love that Alec was the one to say it first, because in kind of the early stages of them getting together, it was kind of Magnus who was putting himself out there a lot, and then obviously we got to that wedding scene where Alec kind of made the move, and you can see he's not afraid to make the moves anymore, because he's grown a lot as a character over this period and spending this time with Magnus, and just seeing Alec grow enough to a place where he can comfortably tell someone that he loves him Beautifully done, so well kind of portrayed, and normally, you know, like all these grand I love you scenes, it would normally be like a really intimate kind of romantic spot for a lot of like TV shows and films, but this was like quite out in the open, and it still felt somehow intimate, and I think that was kind of the beauty of the whole scene, because it still felt intimate and romantic, even though it wasn't being shoved down our throats like, this is romance, enjoy it, because the dialogue and the performances spoke for themselves. And obviously, as a Malik fan, which basically everyone is and should be, there's another punch the air moment, and you really do root for Magnus and Alec. So to see them kind of take this new step in their relationship was so satisfying and really emotional, and a really beautiful moment. So at number 4, it's Jace's death from the Season 2 finale, episode 20, Beside Still Water. Obviously, I knew, having read the books and everything, and most people would have figured anyway, that Jace wasn't going to stay dead for long. But still, I think the whole scene was so well shot and so emotional, so beautiful. The performances were great. The fact that Jace made an effort for his last words to be "I love you," which he said to Clary, and Clary's reaction to Jace's death. Heart-wrenching stuff. I got really emotional watching it for the first time, even though I knew that Jace was going to be okay. And the location for it was so beautiful, and having Jace's death kind of spliced with images of Alec kind of losing his Parabatai mark and going through that agony of losing the Parabatai. It worked really well emotionally, like the music and everything, and we've been building to this moment for so long that it was kind of, at the time, the emotional crux of Shadowhunters as a show, and it was just a beautifully done sequence. They really did highlight the tragedy of it really, really well. I don't think they overdid it. I think it was very kind of stripped back and simple, as it should be, because, you know, not all these deaths are like over dramatic and exploding in real life. And, you know, Jace didn't get this whole speech, you know, as he was dying, and he had like this perfect kind of final monologue before he died. You know, he got a few words out and that was it. Really well done, very well acted, and I think it was an emotional high. They really nailed the emotional aspects of it, so that just made that scene so impactful. At number 3, it's the scenes with Simon and his mother in the 3A finale, episode 10, Urchomai, however you say it. I think you're getting a sense that I really love the emotional moments in Shadowhunters, and this was probably one of the biggest emotional gut punches of all. Not what I was expecting for them to go in terms of like a storyline just yet, but I love that they did this. And you know, we had that scene, all the stuff in episode 9 was awful with like Heidi and everything, and Simon kind of feeding on his sister in front of his mother, that whole secret getting blown wide open. And then we had a beautiful scene in this episode where Simon's sister kind of supported him and said she'd be there for him, but they know they had to do something about his mother. And then we get this heartbreaking scene where Simon has to kind of let his mother go and kind of incantos her and tells her that Simon died in an accident, and she made up this whole vampire thing in her head as like a way of coping with it. Tragic. It was awful enough kind of seeing Simon's mother kind of reject him and say, you know, you're not my son, you're a monster. And then this is kind of even worse, because the Lewis family had already lost Simon's father, and now they were going through another loss, because, you know, Simon's mother was losing her son, Simon was kind of losing his mother as well. And the performances were something else. Some of the best acting I think we've seen in the show. The dialogue was just so well done. And when Simon was saying things like, you know, he'll always think of you, and he'll think about how much he's really going to miss you, and your son didn't feel any pain. Just those little attention to detail that Simon was kind of giving in his story, and the way we see Simon is really carefully choosing his words to try and soften the blow as much as he can for his mother. A beautifully sad sequence. I just gets me emotional every time I watch it. Beautifully acted, very well written. You know, the understated music in the background helps really sell it. And then when Simon walks out and you just see his mother just break down like that, start sobbing because she's lost her son. Awful, awful, awful. And you still hear her kind of crying when Simon's walking out. And as a big Sissy fan, this moment's made all the more poignant and fantastic and wonderful and heartbreaking because Izzy is there for Simon and they have that really nice hug. And she just lets Simon cry. It's a tragic scene, it really is. It's so, so sad seeing this family kind of get torn apart. And that's on top of everything else that's going on in the 3A finale as well. But this was one of the saddest scenes in the whole show for me. It really does stick with me. It was just so well acted and written and put together. It's just the emotional gut punches, man. They're just so, so good, and this was probably one of the best examples that the show's ever had. So at number 2, I feel like people may get a bit mad that this isn't number 1, but for me, number 2 is Malik's first kiss in Season 1, Episode 12. Malik, very aptly titled. I remember kind of seeing the episode title when I first watched it, because I didn't really know what Malik was. I was like, what does that mean? I was like, I'm glad I didn't Google it, because I probably would have got spoiled, but yeah, kind of the big moment. A lot of Season 1 was building up to this moment, and it kind of, the show exploded from here on out with the Malik fever. And an emotional payoff for this journey that Magnus and Alec had been going on since they met in like episode 4 of Season 1 or something. We had everything with Lydia and the wedding, that whole kind of mess. Alex still had kind of feelings for Jace at that time as well, so he was dealing with that, and then dealing with his growing feelings for Magnus. The age difference, the fact that Alec hadn't come out to his family, and when he finally does come out, it's in the most extra way possible, and the most high profile way possible. You know, he literally leaves Lydia at the altar for a man, and that's how his parents are going to find out that he's gay. So Alec, really. So Malik. Malik kind of turning up to the wedding, and I really love Lydia's attitude in that scene, where she was like, you know, it's fine, I'm going to be fine. You know, you do you. Or words to that effect. I love that. And, you know, the music and everything, boom, this huge emotional climax. Huge kind of growth in terms of character for Alec. And Magnus to an extent, and seeing everyone's reactions, you can see how happy they are for them, especially Isabel. And obviously Maris, or Maris, however you say her name, doesn't take it too well, and Robert's like, you know, give her time. So Robert's kind of cool with it. That was interesting as well, because, you know, they kind of swapped that around in the books. I think in the books, Robert was the one who had more of a problem with that. But yeah, obviously Malik is far and away the most popular ship in the show. Probably in the books as well, to be honest. And to kind of see it officially happen on screen is obviously a huge moment, and very well earned from both the characters, and it was a pairing you were rooting for the whole series. So to finally get that moment, really, really satisfying, really cool, and a rare kind of happy moment in the show, in a way, because there's a lot of drama going on. I mean, there was a lot of drama in that whole sequence, but it was kind of more of a happy kind of drama for once in this bleak, bleak show where hearts are broken. So yeah, it was an amazing kind of iconic moment, and I think loads of people will never forget when they first watch that episode and they look back on the show in years to come. and look back on Malik and everything, their whole journey, and think, damn, what a wedding. So number 1 for me, I don't think it would be the traditional top, like, list topping thing. I feel like a lot of people would have the Malik wedding scene be their number 1 moment. But for me, a lot of this top 10 was kind of shaped by me being the fan of the books, especially in the later seasons, because I didn't read, and I read all the books after I'd watched season 1. So going into season 2, I had a lot more knowledge of where the story may go. I won't say will go, because obviously they changed a lot up in the show. But a lot of times we've had moments in the show that have been like taken directly from the books, and as a huge book fan, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I love that we saw that on screen. And then sometimes the show goes above and beyond and takes sequences from the books that I was looking forward to seeing, and I have really high expectations of those moments, and then the show exceeds its expectations by so much more than I ever dreamed. And that's why number 1 for me is when Raziel, the angel Raziel, rises out of the lake in Beside Still Water, the season 2 finale, episode 20. A lot of entries on my top 10 from that episode, because I was really looking forward to seeing how they were going to handle Raziel's appearance, what he was going to look like, and how they kind of bigged up this appearance since the beginning of the show, because it kind of like, you know, this was Valentine's mission to get to this moment to summon the angel Raziel. And then, my god, I will never forget the chills I got when he rose, the angel Raziel rose from that lake. He looked awesome. I loved the effect of him. And then they got, you know, Anthony Stewart Head to voice him, which is such a good choice. I love his work. Some of you may know I'm reacting to Buffy at the minute, and I'm loving him as Giles. So seeing Raziel like on screen was just so cool, because I loved that sequence in the book, and it looked even better and even more stunning than I could have ever hoped for. I loved the kind of subtle way he moved. I loved the voice and everything. It was just even better than I ever could have hoped it would be. So I was kind of like having a proper fanboy moment during that whole sequence, and I will never forget my excitement when that scene played out, and it was beyond anything I'd kind of seen the show do in terms of taking stuff from the books. And it kind of just made the finale for me, just seeing something I'd imagined in my head, you know, so vividly, but then to actually see it on screen and it be kind of even more beautiful and imaginative than what was in my own head was just fantastic. And I'll never get over the buzz I felt during that whole scene, and that's why for me Raziel Rising had to be number 1 in my favourite moments from the show. So those were my top 10 favourite moments from Shadowhunters. Obviously there were so many moments that just missed out, and some of those, you know, if I looked at the list again I might swap a few round or whatever, but I had to just come up with a list, so that was kind of what I finalised. But it's kind of ever changing. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed my choices, and even if you don't agree with all of them, you can understand where I'm coming from with them. Especially in like number 1, because I can't imagine that being many people's like favourite moment of the show ever. But you know, I hope you understand where I'm coming from with that. And the Malik wedding kiss was very, very close, so don't worry. But yeah, overall, I hope you enjoy this list, and you know, let me know in the comments what your favourite moments in the show have been, and what you think your favourite moments may be in like 3B and the finale. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing other moments of the show that people may really enjoy, and even moments that weren't even in my list. So yeah, that's my top 10, and I will see you tomorrow for another video, but thanks for watching.